Today we will be discussing about the sources of writing the Indian history between the time period of say circa 650 AD to 1200. And in this period, what are the sources, what are the significance? This will be discussed in this class.
So, why are sources important for writing history?
As you can very well understand that the historians are non-participants. They are distanced from the event for say hundreds or thousands of years. So they need some kind of information through which they analyze, try to describe the event as such. So they need informations, and these are being culled from different types of sources which vary according to the availability as well as the kind of requirements of the particular discipline or the particular problem that they are going to address. That's why we need sources.
Sir, what are the particular problems of sources for writing Indian history?
Right, this is a very good question because in Indian history we find that we are devoid of quote unquote historical texts which can be dated very precisely. In most of the cases, the philosophical as well as the religious treatise, they are not dated, so it has to be derived from some different sources. We cannot precisely pin down to a chronological frame, and this is because we depend on orality. It is more sacred than the written ones. Another is that due to the religious underpinning, again, unlike the Judeo-Christian tradition, in Indian religion we emphasize on some eternal truths. So precise chronology, precise dating is not important. That's why we don't find that the texts are very well dated. Number one. And number two, though we have a kind of indigenous historical tradition known as the Itihasa Purana, but they are full of stories. So very serious historical work cannot be based on this kind of tradition. And even if we have a Charitam tradition like Harsha Charita or Vikramanka Deva Charita, but there also, as it is basically a kind of eulogy, the historical sources cannot be dependable. That's why Indian history has a problem of historical sources. Starting from the 19th century onwards, with the discovery of the lithic remains, basically the religious structures, attention of serious historians of the West was attracted towards Indian history. And also, along with the lithic remains and the religious architecture, particularly the temples, huge number of inscriptions were discovered. And one of the doyens of Indian study of Indian inscription, Professor D.C. Sarkar, by 1980, is telling that a database of 90,000 inscriptions are available, and the number is increasing day by day.
So, what are inscriptions?
Inscriptions are a kind of writing which is either embossed or engraved on a kind of durable material, like either the stone or some metal sheets like the copper plates, and they are engraved on this kind of things. And they can be distinguished between two types. One kind of public documents, either the administrative manuals or administrative informations or royal eulogies, or they can be classified as a kind of private sort of information, donative type of inscriptions. The study of inscription pertains to a kind of discipline which is known as epigraphy. It is a kind of science because it pertains to the classification as well as interpretation of the inscriptions that have been found. Another important aspect of the study of inscription is paleography. that is, the study of the evolution of the script through which trajectory a particular script, say for instance Brahmi or Kharoshthi, how they evolved. Along with these three things, we can have a very good impression about the inscription and the sources and the informations that they give.
So, sir, how did this discipline emerged in India?
Right. It started with a very interesting incident. Firoj Tughlaq once, the Delhi Sultan of the 14th century, he once brought an Ashokan relic from some place to Delhi, and he entrusted people with deciphering the script, but nobody was able to accomplish the task. In 19th century, precisely in 1838, British official James Prinsep, he finally deciphered the script which was written in Brahmi, and from then onwards we can say that the proper study of inscription it started.
Excuse me, sir. Could you please demonstrate the advantage of this kind of sources?
Indian history had the problem of chronology. The philosophical treatises or the literary creations, they lacked dates. But in the context of inscriptions, either they have a fixed chronology, that is, they have different eras published within the inscription, the date of the inscription being inscribed, either in the Vikrama Sambat or in the Shaka era or the Gupta era, it is being inscribed. Even when we don't find a particular date, but the study of paleography that I told, that means the study of the evolution of the script, through paleography we can establish a kind of relative chronology of the inscription in which it was published. So it gives us a kind of framework without which we cannot work in history. History cannot work in limbo. There should be a kind of date and place. So inscription helps us to fix the date. Here is the basic contribution of inscriptions.
So, sir, what are the other benefits apart from reconstructing history?
Other than the chronology, as I told, that history functions within a particular date, within a particular time and place. Date means time. Now, naturally, other than the date, chronology, the place from where the inscription has been published, it is also sometimes being given. For instance, so and so publishing or announcing this particular event or particular grant from Jayas Kandhavar, that is a kind of camp, military camp, from where it is being published. So by study of the place names from where the inscription have been published, it gives us the idea about the extent of the particular kingdom or the empire or the particular king. And this gives us another very important information about the historical geography, how the kingdoms, how the empires, it waxed and waned. This also can be gleaned out from the informations that we get from the inscriptions.
Excuse me, sir. Apart from the political history, what else do the inscriptions provide us with?
Generally, inscriptions give us the details of the political history. This has been accepted, that it will give us some chronology, it will give us the informations regarding the politics. But as I told you, that there are two types. One, it is the public documents, the official eulogies, prashastis, like the Allahabad Prashasti of Samudragupta or Devpada Prashasti of Vijay Sen or other prashastis. Apart from these royal eulogies, a huge number of inscriptions are there which give us information about the individual donors. Now with these private inscriptions, the votive or donative type of inscriptions, we have a plethora of social information, because these informations gives us the name of the donor, the gotra, then the family background of the particular person, the kind of thing he is being giving, to whom he is being given, what is the price of the land that he has purchased, for instance. So these all informations, they give us a huge amount of social information as well as economic. How? In the context of South Indian history, generally the earlier dynasties, they were concentrated in the riverine delta. The Cholas, they are concentrated in Kaveri, the Pandyans, they are concentrated in the Vaihai delta, the Vengi in the Krishna or Godavari basin region. Now, in the 12th 13th century, which pertains to our period, here we find that there is a clear shift from the riverine delta zone towards the inland zone, for instance the Telangana region, which later came to be known as the tank district. Huge number of water tanks were being excavated. Now these informations, one give us the social information, who did the thing. Another, a very important economic shift is being traced through inscription, that the agrarian frontier, it is being pushed from the fertile riverine delta zone towards the inland or upland lateritic zone. So these kind of very important social informations also we gather. Another very important instance I can give you, that generally in the Dharmashastras it is held that the woman seldom can hold property. This is the general position of the Dharmashastras, the religious texts. Now in this period we find, and very noted historian Leslie Orr, she has worked upon it, that the temple woman, the woman as such, they are donating to the temples in a huge amount. So this gives us a different viewpoint to the philosophical treatise which comes from the inscription, the real life situation where the individual actors, they are on motion. Through this we can get a very important insight into how the society is actually working, rather than in the philosophical or religious treatise. So this information we can get from the inscriptions.
Sir, what is the special significance of the inscriptions for this particular period?
This period, that is between 600 to 1200, this has been considered in the recent history writing, historiography, as a period of significant change, social as well as economic, and along with it political change also. A period of fragmentation, a period of decentralization of political power, and this idea of a change from the earlier point, this was gathered by historians like Ramcharan Sharma, starting with D.D. Koshambi, then Ramcharan Sharma, Professor Srimali, or in the context of South Indian history, Professor Kesavan Veluthat. They have all came to this idea of change from the study of inscriptions, because from 600 AD onwards we find increasing number of copper plate inscriptions are being published. Copper plate inscriptions are a kind of inscription written on copper plates with a kind of royal seal embossed on it, which gives the official authority to that particular grantee. Historians like Ramcharan Sharma, he came to the idea that there is a kind of social as well as economic shift, as well as political, and he characterized this polity as a feudal state, precisely on the study of inscriptions. From the study of inscriptions, he came to the idea that the big empires, days of the big empires, it has ended, and now we find growth of regional entities, the Palas in Bengal, Rashtrakutas in south, or even deep south, the Cholas coming up just after this. In the Western India, the Gurjara Pratiharas. These regional powers are growing up, and they are donating in a huge amount lands to the religious functionaries. This he considered to be significant marker of a social change, precisely on the basis of the study of inscription. In the context of South India, again precisely on the basis of inscriptional studies, Professor Bertonstein, he came out with a different theory to look at the state formation in South India, known as the segmentary state. That also precisely on the basis of inscription, as in South it is much more on the temple walls. If you go there, if you visit any temple wall, it is full of inscriptions, and by study of these inscriptions we can come to a kind of idea about how the society, polity and the economy it was developing.
So sir, what is the significance of inscriptions in case of urban centers or non-agrarian economy?
Right, this is a very good question, because generally it is considered that it will be a kind of religious grant and a village like that. But in the context of urban studies also, inscription give us enormous data, particularly in this period which Ramcharan Sharma considers to be a feudal state. He also posits with, or he comes up with, the idea of monetary anemia, as well as a kind of de-urbanization and growth of self-sufficient village economy. So the question of urban centers does not arise. But in this precise period, Professor B.D. Chattopadhyay, he looks at the concept in a different manner, that a kind of intermediate urban centers between the agrarian zones or centers and the big cities, a kind of intermediate urban centers come up, which is generally known as either Nagaram or Pentha, like that. And by studying this, he actually refutes the idea of de-urbanization. In the coastal region, we come across references of some seafarers, Nauvittakas, or the sailors involved in it, Navika Karmakaras. If we study these in totality, then we see that despite the fact that seafaring was considered to be a kind of religious sin, you cannot go abroad or across the sea, this is not actually true if we study the inscriptions. So again, the conception that we gather from the religious treatise, it is being refuted by the study of inscriptions. And another very important, I will just give you a glimpse of how the social scheme was evolving. By around 1264 in Somnath, which was a noted Hindu religious center, we find a person, Nuruddin Firoz, that he comes from Ormuz, across the sea, comes to Somnath. He was a very pious Muslim. He asks the Shaiva Pashupatacharya, kind of Mathadhipati of Somnath, very important religious personality, Hindu religious personality, for establishing a masjid, a mosque. And he is being granted with the permission to establish a mosque. So this kind of snippets of social information, which goes very much against the generally accepted notion of separateness of different religions, these also we can gather from the inscriptions. So economy wise or for social information also, inscriptions open a wide area, expanse, which gives us new perspective to look into the history of early medieval or medieval India.
So sir, what is the significance of coins for the reconstruction of history of this period?
Study of coins, known as numismatics, they are either some metals. In the case of punch-marked coins, they are silver pieces on which some mark has been embossed. That's why they are known as the punch-marked coins. Subsequently to the punch-marked coins and other coins, in the Gupta period we find enormous number of gold coins or just before that, after the end of the Mauryan period, in the period of the Bactrian Greeks, we find exquisite examples of coins being struck, and they give us enormous information regarding again the chronological background and the dynastic history. By the study of the legends which has been published around the coin, the chronological frame also can be established. But again, in this period, what we are discussing between 600 to 1200, as I told you that Ramcharan Sharma considers this to be a period of de-urbanization and a kind of monetary anemia, because compared to the Gupta period and the subsequent Sultanate period, which evolves after in the 13th century, in between these 600 years, we don't come across the kind of coins in quality as well as quantity compared to the earlier period or the subsequent period. So this period is considered to be a kind of demonetized period. The result, Ramcharan Sharma tells that it is precisely because there is no trade as such, or the trade, they are very, very localized. A kind of barter economy has started because of the self-sufficient economy, and that's why we don't find the coins. But recently, dissident voices are being raised, and noted scholar Deal, he comes out with the thesis Living Without Silver, where he tells that the methodology of studying numismatics, it has to be changed. Earlier, the study of coins meant study of the legends and the study of the images embossed on the coins, which gave us idea about the dynastic history, which was basically a kind of episodic nature. A particular king's name is being found, we place him in a particular chronological frame, that's all. But if we study the metrology, that is the content of the metal or the quality of the metal, then the weight through which the denomination of the coin can be established, if we study all these things and also the design and other things, this gives us a different view, different idea about the economic history of this period. How? He tells that generally the study of numismatic means that you go to different museums, and through going through the catalogs being maintained in the different museums, you come to an idea, you come to a kind of conclusion regarding your area. But if we study the unpublished things, and particularly the hoards, a kind of collection of the old coins which were being used at particular point, and these things, that is metrology or the content of the precious metal in the coin, then we come across, or we can come to altogether a different kind of conclusion, that this period was not that very dismal from the context of economic history. But generally it is seen that the earlier efflorescence of metallic coinage, it was a bit hampered in this period. Again it gains ground in the subsequent Sultanate period. But again, numismatics also gives us a huge amount of detail, not only for constructing the political history, but also for construction of economic history as well. This also should be kept in mind that inscriptions are not a panacea for writing Indian history. That can be used imaginatively, particularly the inscriptions and the coins, but this will go hand in hand along with an imaginative use of the literature also, or even within the inscriptional studies in epigraphy, we have to grow, we have to evolve a distinct methodological approach how the inscription can be used much more beneficially. We should be using these sources, using our judgment and interpreting it imaginatively. Then only these sources will give us lot more informations and many more discoveries are to be made. By using these new informations, we can write a new kind of Indian history. Thank you.